Here we go again, so we don't get a copyright ding. There is no words to this because even Marvel released a official lyrics, and the lyrics that they listed for it were they were dun 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 dun. So I will just say previously on X-Men, we talked about the first two episodes. Never did I discuss double series premiere. We really enjoyed it. If you didn't watch that yet, after you watch this one, go back and watch that. Sorry for singing right now because my singing is not very good, and I'll just get going, and then it's almost done, so you're almost good. Here's the end of this. No copyright infringement.
Mark, you did yourself again. Hey, how's it going?
Good morning. Happy Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Saturday morning and X-Men cartoons are
X-Men cartoons.
The way to go. So I like that we're doing this on Saturday mornings. We have at least a few people joining us again. We got Shiny Plastic People saying that he immediately grabbed the Goblin Queen figure off of this episode.
The Goblin Queen made an impact.
Yeah, aka Madeline Pryor. Easy for me to say. Aka Madeline Pryor, aka Jean Grey, aka Gene Gene Grey.
Gray, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess before we get into like a breakdown of it, what did you think overall of this third episode, Fire Made Flesh?
Another really cool episode. I mean, and this episode really, turned into part horror film, and just these kind of amazing reveals. Mr. Sinister is such a good villain. And then of course this whole Jean Grey stuff, fantastic. Really, I love that.
Yeah, I enjoyed this as well. I know I think it was X-Men Apocalypse, was that in that one, they were trying to like tease it, at least with like the tag scene in that, for Mr. Sinister to be like set up for like the next one of those films. Or I think it was supposed to be like, I think at one point the Logan film, like Mr. Sinister was going to be the villain in that, and like I know like that like all changed because like you saw like that with where like in that, because the Fox X-Men live action timelines all jankified.
Yeah. All over the place.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like tangentially connected to that version of Weapon X Wolverine that we saw for like 5 or 10 seconds in X-Men Apocalypse there. And then you're supposed to be like, oh, okay, And then I think the James Mangold version of Logan that we got is fantastic. But I think at one point, Mr. Sinister was supposed to be the villain in that, and I think that's even spoilers for Logan. I think that's even why like there's the Logan clone in that too, so it's supposed to be playing off of all of this stuff here. Just off screen, Logan poster.
Nice.
But yeah, I enjoyed this post. Yeah, I was gonna say I enjoyed this poster. I enjoyed this episode a lot too. I actually waited until just like an hour or so before we went on to do this, just because I wanted to make sure that it was as fresh as possible within my head when we started talking about it. But I'll read the synopsis off of it really quick. It was, when a visitor arrives at the mansion with a dangerous secret that threatens Cyclops and Jean's relationship, the team is propelled into a tragic confrontation with an immortal mad scientist. So the other thing too that's interesting is that they kind of inverted expectations here too. It's like, because usually the person that shows up, that person is the clone,
is the imposter, right? Yeah.
They flipped it on its head so that the Jean that showed up at the door, she was actually the quote unquote real Jean, and the Jean that we've been hanging out with for the past 2 episodes, the one that gave birth
Yeah.
to, or see, because they go into this like a little bit later in the episode too, because you're like, when was the switch? Did it happen after Nathan was born? At somehow some point in there. So like I put my notes for this too. It kind of reminded me of the whole Ben Riley, Peter Parker clone situation where like that's a whole convoluted thing with like in that too. It's like Peter thinks he's the clone at one point, Ben Riley thinks he's the real one, and then back and forth, and then later on it's revealed the other one's actually the clone. But then wait, nope, the other one actually was the clone.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess they could do that forever with Jean and Madeline Pryor here too. I still like my
Yeah.
idea of calling one Jean like
I do
Jean, and then
too.
Jean Gene,
Gene.
just to play, the little word play with her being a clone.
Yes, it works, Mark.
I think it'd be fun. Miss, Miss, Mr. Sinister needs to be a little bit more clever with his wordplay there. But yeah, what did you think of that? Like that reveal that we got, like right there at the beginning.
So, I mean, again, it was a great cliffhanger, right, from episode 2, and then they just dive right into it in this episode, and with Beast doing his genetic tests, like dang,
Okay.
Clearly, and I guess one of the things that I really liked, one of the many things I really liked about this series so far is they just don't mess around. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
just
mean, I know the episodes are
straight
short,
into
but
it.
they just dive into it, and I've appreciated that rather than having to like really wait,
Yeah.
to because they could have waited for like into the halfway through the episode for Beast to come up with these genetic tests results. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was interesting to me. What did you think?
Yeah, I enjoy that too. Like his like whole kind of pseudoscience, but also based in somewhat real science. Like like
Yeah,
carbon, saying like she was carbon dating her to like that's how you could tell like she was the one that's actually been around
yeah,
longer because of that.
I thought it was so cool. Yeah, the way that
Yeah, uh, and one of the things I thought was I thought was interesting to kind of move a little ahead into episode 2 is that um, at least like with this like the second episode and then this one, like when they've gone like out to like kind of do some of these missions, I've noticed at least in the past too, I don't have like a problem with it either too, is that Wolverine ha has stuck behind. I want to say Beast was behind last time too.
yeah,
There's like the same three. It was Jean, Wolverine,
Wolverine and
and
Beast.
Beast were all back at the mansion, and then in the like in the last episode they did the same thing. So what did you think about that? You think like would you want to see like Wolverine going out more with that or
Well, sure. I mean, because I love Wolverine, so he can be, he can go on every adventure, every mission, and I'd be fine with that. I think has been interesting though, because they don't just like all go together. Yeah, as you said, they kind of split up. Mark, was that a again? Since I haven't watched that many episodes of the original one, was that a convention that they used a lot in the in the OG series?
I don't recall. I know like a lot of like shows will kind of do that where they're just kind of like trying to segment the team
Yes.
so you can have them in like different environments and whatnot, and then that's probably
Well,
a little
then
bit
and then the multiple storylines going on in the episode, right?
yeah, it's probably a little bit cheaper for animation to do that too,
Yeah,
because then you
exactly.
don't have as many characters
The
in one
characters,
spot
yeah,
doing all of this stuff back and forth there.
yeah,
Um, but like as we got into that like next area too, what did you think with um, like the whole like once it's kind of revealed that Jean's genes have been you know doubled. This like whole kind of like sequence that's like this kind of like freaky poltergeist slash the Thing type
Man,
visions of like these different like goblins and
yeah, it's
just
just like it
weird,
turns into
yeah,
a
like
horror movie, like this nightmare, right?
yeah, kind of. It was very Cronenberg esque with a lot of the stuff that
Yes,
we were
that's the
seeing there.
perfect way to put it. Yeah. Well, and I thought they were using interesting influences too. I mean, one of them is definitely like a Studio Ghibli kind of character, when that elevator opens or whatever. Uh, anyway, and also some good comedy thrown in too. Um, but I was dazzled by it. I mean, I hate horror movies, but for this purposes, I really thought it worked because also, I mean, we're dealing with Mr. Sinister here. Like when Jubilee is watching TV too. That was uh, with Roberto, right? That was gnarly. I thought too. The stuff coming out of the TV, and anyway, really, that was terrific.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The like one of the other things, like you were saying, like the Ghibli esque, um, like when Beast is on the elevator there, and he's like, one of these one for one of us, this floor is the wrong one. So
Yeah, yeah,
I liked that there, but yeah, like you had like Magneto and like Rogue melting into each other, like with what Gambit saw. Um, he had Morph with like some PTSD for their past
yeah,
uh, run-ins with Mister Sinister. So I thought it was interesting what they were doing there with Morph to kind of give them a little bit more, you know, if people, I mean, obviously, I feel like a lot of people that are watching X-Men 97 did also watch like the original series from the 90s too. But then, even if like this is the first time you're watching an X-Men animated series, they're they're layering in enough kind of backstory for it so that if you're hopping onto this for the first time, um, you're not going to get lost. But then if you did also watch the older series, then you're kind of getting like that added kind of flavor and kind of extra levels of whatnot to it from there.
yeah.
But yeah, so I enjoyed that, and that's I just like what this is like one of the things you can do just like with animation,
Right.
like you can do some of this stuff with live action too, but it ends up being animation anyways because
It's
it's
all
it,
CGI,
yeah,
right?
because it'll be like visual effects that you see like within a film that like yeah, like you said, will most of the time now usually be CG. Like what I was referencing, like with like the Thing or like a lot of like older Cronenberg movies, like a lot of that stuff would like be practical, kind of like like on set effects and whatnot with like puppets and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like nowadays, it it end up being more of the former rather than the latter there.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed that the whole sequence there. Sylvie enjoyed it too while she was watching it.
Sylvie, I know,
Um,
was having a glad Sylvie's on
yeah.
camera.
Um, one of the things that I thought was funny during the whole sequence too, because it's like there's like references to Dante's Inferno there, and like Beast, it like makes that reference. But what's funny is like Wolverine gets like thrown over to Beast at one point. He's like, "Oh, you smell like burnt hair." So you're still getting like some of these like good like one-liners here from
Yeah,
Wolverine within like
yeah,
these past few episodes too, um, and that just shows you like this like level of reality kind of uh, perception and whatnot that Jean and or at least with Madeline. Yeah, see, like that's the thing too is that like I guess with the Jean clone that like she doesn't technically have the same like level of powers there, so it's like this
right. They've got these shared memories, clearly.
yeah, and she's got like telekinetic abilities like to like enough of a point where she could kind of pass off doing some like base level uh, Jean stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, but
like
I
when she's in Goblin Queen mode, right? She was getting she was doing some stuff, right?
yeah. So I thought that was interesting there too. Hi, silly. And then yeah, then we get the reveal there. Just she's like, I am the Goblin Queen. Um, but I just like a lot of this language too. That like Magneto is like very using very kind of eloquent like language as, when he's like speaking on stuff too. Is he's like his malevolent appropriations will no
Yeah,
longer be tolerated.
yeah.
Um, so I'm liking how they're doing the writing there for Magneto, and kind of like what we've gotten with like the past few episodes too is that, and I'm liking how they're doing that too, is like they're taking time to highlight different characters and give each kind of like their own, like periods of time within these episodes, so that you're getting, for like a lack of a better term, because of the title is like fleshed out a little bit more. Um, what are you thinking of that? Like how we're getting? Are you enjoying like how we're getting some of like this segmented time with the different characters and kind of spending times with different ones, or
Oh,
getting highlighted in the different episodes?
absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I'm really excited to have a, a X-Men feature film in the MCU. I really
Yeah,
look forward to that day. But I thought this was a really brilliant move on Marvel Studios' part to reboot. I mean, to continue on or do this animated series because given just the number of characters and the types of storylines, just as you're saying, animation is such a great uh, you know format for this storytelling, and this has just been I've just been so impressed with how this has all been put together. So yeah, yes,
yeah.
loved it.
And so the when we get to kind of the climax of this episode too, and we go to basically Mister Sinister's like cathedral layer
Man,
kind of place. I really loved the setting of that with like the stained glass
me
windows and
too.
whatnot.
And then how it would shatter. I mean, the animation was so cool. It
Yeah,
looked so good. Yeah,
and it kind of helps with like the whole vibe and kind of theming of it, of like with like the Goblin Queen and it,
yeah,
like I don't like this medieval esque like like Merlin like kind of era type of
yes,
magic. It kind of reminded me like like the What If 1602 episode there with like Wand and
yeah.
Merlin
It
doing some
had
of
a
that stuff
real what
there.
if kind of vibe going on too, didn't it? In
Yeah,
a way, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
which I still wonder, since there's a rumor that Storm will show up in season 3 of What If it's going to be this Storm
Yeah,
from X-Men 97 X-Men animated series, or if it'll be it's like its own thing with whoever else. But that should be interesting. But yeah, I thought that was just, man, like the animation on that sequence alone, just like you're saying with like the different characters taking on uh, the Goblin Queen there. I guess we'll call her in this sequence just because she can kind of call her different names throughout like different
yeah.
scenes that she shows up in as she takes on different personas,
Again, we
more
should
or
just
less.
call her Jean, Gene,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like you're saying, because she's Jean with a
yeah.
G.
I guess that joke only works in writing because, um,
Yeah,
but
because you could say, every time you say it, it's confusing. Yeah,
but yeah. So and then like you're saying there too, like uh, Scott tries to does his optic blast on her and makes her like bleed there, and he's like, "Sorry, I didn't want to do that," and she's like, "Oh, you'll bleed too."
yeah,
um, and then like the side we already talked about it a little bit, but we cut back to Wolverine, Jean, Jean, and
yeah.
Beast back at
Wow, that
the
was a really emotional scene.
mansion. Yeah, like with him, like Wolverine trying to get her to just like reel her in, remind her like who she
Who
was.
she is,
Um,
yeah.
And then while she's doing that, she's like, "Oh, you feel that you feel that way?" And he's like, "And more." So it'll be interesting to see what they do there too.
Absolutely, because I mean, Scott's relationship was with
Or was it?
Madeline.
Yes, but we don't like again see with that too. Like we
But we
don't
don't really
know
know at what
what.
point, right?
Yeah, like
Although I
when
really,
this time was switched out.
it seemed like it was clear that they made it clear. Mark, did you think that? I mean, truly, that Madeline was the one who gave birth
Like
to
it seemed like they were implying that, but then it
Nathan?
also, but then they also go back and then say we can't tell when we were switched.
Yeah.
So they kind of lean one way, but then they lean back a different
So
way. So they're trying
maybe,
to not like lean too far in any one
yeah,
direction,
yeah,
so that like I guess if they wanted to within whatever they end up writing, they could say by the end of the season they'd be like, no, actually, the gene that is not going by Madeline Pryor, she actually she actually was the gene that wasn't the clone. She's the so yeah,
yeah, yeah,
comics. We'll see though. Which yeah, like I liked that like going from that like the whole kind of like mind battle there too with like Gene versus Gene, like the kind of Gene astral projection fighting against the Goblin Queen there, and like her like showing her like all these old memories. We kind of got like our flashback of like child Gene too. So people that saw the Last Stand, if that was the only way that you saw uh, Jean getting meeting Professor X and Magneto for the first time back in that movie, you get a little bit better of a version of that here, like within the, which I really liked how they did like the symbolic nature of that too, with like kind of like framing different things like within that scene,
yeah, yeah,
like actually within like frames and like mirrors that like shattered like when certain things happened, and what were like inciting incidents to like her using her powers for the first time there. So that whole scene itself was great, and I liked how it basically was what broke Goblin Queen Jean into essentially being Madeline,
yeah.
I guess was. But so and then going from there, we then get I believe it's Madeline, or that's where it's kind of confusing. I think it's Madeline because it's supposed to be like it's inferred that she was the one that gave birth to Nathan, but we have her and Scott go down to try to save Nathan from Mister Sinister, and
Yeah, and
Nathan,
who's put Nathan in that green goo or whatever?
yeah,
Try to
which
turn
then
him into the ultimate mutant or whatever he was saying.
yeah, which is interesting too because I know that was like a story, like a whole storyline with like the original '90s series that like there's like this virus that would only like take out those with like the X gene, um, like mutants, and it would only affect them and make them sick. So I'm not sure if it's like meant to be like a callback to that again, or it's kind of like this loop thing where like Bishop is now bringing Nathan back to the future for next Saturday night. Um, but like bring him
Yeah.
to it kind of becomes like its like own self-fulfilling prophecy there with
Yes.
like this version of Nathan going with this version of Bishop to this version of the future to try to make him um, not like get him some kind of a cure for whatever's ailing him now at this point too. And that whole sequence too with them having like to figure out that like that's like they needed to bring him to the future to do that, and Cyclops' whole like his own relationship with his dad there too, and like being abandoned,
Yeah.
and like not like being very against it, which and then kind of like in being against it, he kind of does it because
Right.
he says I won't be a part of this. So then he's like not even there when Nathan it's like like last bit of time here in the past, present, whatever you want to call it, um, as he's brought to the future with Bishop and like
Yeah,
so I thought that's kind of interesting because like he doesn't want to abandon Nathan, but then he kind of does because he's not there when he's handed off to go to the future. So all of this kind of tele, like telepathic kind of indents and imprints that Jean is putting, or Madeline is putting on Nathan here. Like, I almost wonder if he will only remember her in the future now because of this. Because like Scott's not there, so it's like I don't know if like it. So that way, his like presence
yeah,
isn't felt because of that. So then Nathan thinks that 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 is kind of like the cyclical nature where he thinks that his dad Scott did abandon him, even
yeah.
though like Scott was steadfastly against wanting to do that. So I'm wondering because you know like the nature of all time travel in this, we could see adult Nathan, you know, Cable next episode
That's what
coming
I'm
back.
thinking. Like, Bishop's gonna bring him back, and he's gonna be Cable.
Yeah. So
Or
and I'm
maybe
sure
in a
it'll be
couple
different than the
episodes.
Cable that we've already met before with it like the original X-Men animated series. So I haven't looked at the cast list as far as seeing if it says there's a Cable act like voice actor cast. So I'll leave that to make it like a surprise, I guess, because some of the stuff I know, like the Goblin Queen toy, was like already kind of
Yeah, right,
Usually toy releases will spoil some stuff in movies or TV shows because they have to give like those designs like months and months and months and sometimes
right,
like years in advance. So that's why
right.
sometimes you get toys from scenes in movies that didn't even take place, like the Hulk busting out of the Hulkbuster,
Yeah,
uh, because that used to be a thing and then it wasn't by the time the movie came out. Hi, Sylvie. Um, but yeah, like, and then after like that whole sequence, we then get the scene with Jean and Jean. They're kind of like having that conversation about who's the real Jean, Jean, and then
yeah, yeah.
Gen. Um, now, what did you think about that too? Because like even like because they've gone this whole episode saying they both have all of the same memories and experiences and whatnot, but then it feels like the Jean that chooses to go by Madeline Pryor seems pretty like okay with just um like if they both do like have all of those same like experiences and memories and whatnot, it seems like it should be as hard for one as it is for the other
Yeah,
to wanna to like piece out, especially if like they both remember and feel that love for like Scott and everybody else on the X-Men. So what did you kind of think about that like kind of ending and resolution, at least within this episode that we got to the two of them?
yeah. That's a really good question, Mark. For me, I thought uh, that Madeline Pryor, we'll call her. Okay, so you like accepted the fact that she was a clone made by Sinister,
Yeah.
and so even though they've got these shared memories and stuff, I just, again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I thought that Madeline really, uh, I mean, she made that realization, and she knew that she was the imposter, so she's going to have to establish some kind of a
Yeah.
new, a new life, and which is, again, I thought was a really interesting choice. I know that Madeline Pryor exists, but I don't really know much, about her story in the comics, and so uh, it'll be interesting to see where they go, and also, again, my interpretation, and again, I could be wrong, just as we were talking about. I think Madeline is the biological mother of Nathan, so I think
Yeah.
that could play into it. But then also the whole thing, I think, kind of with that love triangle now, because the real Jean, she's got feelings for Wolverine, clearly, and vice versa. So I think that's going to be an interesting relationship dynamic too, which is again one of the things I love about X-Men. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. The one of the things I liked there too was that I I like how it kind of almost becomes like a philosophical thing too. Is like because they're essentially the same person, you then can kind of almost get like that divergent path of, well,
yeah,
if I made this choice, then this, but if I made this choice, then this, where you kind of see that physically incarnate there, where like this gene chose this gene chose that,
hmm
and that caused this, and that caused that.
yeah.
Um, so it'll be. I'm sure this isn't like the last we're gonna see of Madeline Pryor, like within
I
this
agree.
season too. So
She's going to be involved in the future for sure, future storylines. And then I'm
yeah,
just really interested in what's going to happen to Nathan. You know how
yeah,
they're gonna what they're going to show with that. If we're going to get some episode with Bishop and Nathan in the future, you know. Anyway,
yeah, yeah. That should be should be interesting to see what happens from there. And then like after this scene, we get almost kind of like a denouement of this scene of um,
the
Storm
storm. Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
in this bar, and then this dude just comes up to her, starts making all these weather puns, and she's just like, "Speak plainly, sir. Stop making weather puns around me." Um, on this person is Forge, and then it's kind of like implied that he's gonna try to help her get uh,
Get her powers back, right?
get her
Yeah.
storm groove
Become
back.
Storm again. Yeah.
Yeah, which like we talked about that in the last episode. I'm just like they're not gonna have Storm in this, and then like she doesn't come back. So
Oh, she's coming
um,
back. Yeah, no question, right? In fact, maybe given kind of the pattern that we've seen, when they have like the cliffhanger,
yeah,
in a way,
seems like maybe like
that's going to be the next episode, probably, maybe, if it follows the pattern of these other
well,
three
we know
episodes.
at least we know at least. Uh, so one of before we get into like the just kind of like a hint of like what's next week, one of the things I thought was uh, kind of interesting, like as far as like during like that gene versus gene sequences, that like a bunch of like those framed kind of photos were essentially like covers of like past comic books that I liked. There's that
Wasn't that
the
cool? Yeah.
like the famous shot of Cyclops like holding Jean, and then Jean also in that flashback had like the mythical Cyclops like stuffed doll, which I thought was kind of like a little nice wink,
Yeah,
wink,
when
nudge,
when
nudge. Be
Professor
like,
when Professor X goes to pick up, young Jean.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought it was like, oh, look at she always likes Cyclops. Um, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so like next week we have Motendo / Life Death Part One, and we know for that episode that it's on Jubilee's birthday, uh, and she has to relive the X Men's greatest adventure when an entertainment system transports her into a 16-bit video game. So uh, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with like the animation on that episode, because
Oh, me
I
too.
don't know how many people like watching this or in the chat like watched Community, but that the whole episode, I don't remember what season it was, but the whole episode where like where it's literally kind of like all animated to be like they're in an NES or Super Nintendo game. Uh, I kind of hope that X-Men '97 does basically almost the same
Does
exact
does
thing
the
for the
same
next
thing.
episode, or that it looks very similar to like the X-Men Capcom video games, where it's almost like that animation style to those.
That would be cool too.
So we'll have to see what happens there. But what I guess as we wrap up, was there anything else that stood out to you or that you want to see coming up, like in next week, or anything else yet, Stanford?
So again, I just think animation is the coolest way to present these stories, and I'm so glad that that's what Marvel Studios, decided to do. I just thought that was such a smart move because, again, I'm repeating myself, I know, but I mean, I can't wait for an MCU, uh, film of X-Men. But this has just been, my expectations have been surpassed. I appreciate so much the good quality, the good writing, the excellent animation. Uh, I think they're killing it. And
Yeah,
I think, it was like the Rotten Tomatoes score shows. Not that I always put all my credence in that, but is it
yeah,
still at 100%? I think fans are really digging this, and that's so fun.
yeah. This and Miss Marvel are the highest rated Marvel Studios slash Marvel Animation produced television series that they've released. And like a slight spoiler to Miss Marvel, and ironically, both have instances of the X Men animated series uh, theme song within them too, which is
Yeah,
kind of like a nice little
nice.
thing between them. Um, but yeah, so yeah, like you said, I'm enjoying these a lot. I think the writing is done really, really well. I'm enjoying the animation, like you said, as well there too. And then for people, if they want to, they can check out the episode we did last week if they didn't watch that one yet. You find all of our old episodes on animationfascination.net, and you'll also see links there too, like the YouTube channel if you're not already here watching it. Um, and then you can find Animation Fascination pretty much on most social media places at either Animated Podcast or at Animation Fascination. Um, and then you can find myself in Stanford at most of those places as well, just under our first and last names. If you want to join that too, you can find links for that either in this video if you're on YouTube or on our website there too. But I'm Mark Febrer, so for myself and Stanford Clark, thank you all for joining us this week, and we'll see you again next week with Jubilee's birthday. So bye, everybody. Bye.